So I heard some exciting news that Avalara recently announced agentic tax and compliance. But what does agentic mean in this context? And why is that a huge change for how businesses manage compliance? So I invited Jayme Fishman to tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, hey, that's a great question. Thanks for having me. When we say the term agentic, what that implies, of course, is that there's an agent involved, and in this case, our agents are pieces of software that can perform activities, not just assist customers with answering or partners with answering questions, but actually execute autonomous tasks, of course, under the supervision of humans.
So what drove Avalara to kind of develop this new model? Was it customer demand or maturity of where AI is now, kind of the increase in complexity in global tax? What was the driving force?
Well, I know those were all ors, but I would just say yes as a wholesale answer to the list of things that you enumerated. Of course, the great unlock is the maturity of AI and its capabilities. Where in the month of November here, and it's a month, or excuse me, a year from the time that MCP servers were actually announced and released, and that seems crazy because everybody's using them, and those, of course, are model context protocol servers that allow pieces of software agents to interact with other systems. And that's just a year old. And then, agent to agent frameworks, the protocol that Google released is only this past April. So these are really new novations that have just unlocked, the art of the possible. And so, of course, with that, you get customer demand. So one begets the other. And we are dealing with an area that's ripe for the application of these things due to the complexity, that you referenced. So I think they all kind of conspire to create the impetus for us to launch these things.
Well, Jayme, this sounds like a topic that's near and dear to your heart that you know a lot about. Tell us a little bit more about your role at Avalara.
Yeah, so I'm Avalara's Chief Strategy and Product Officer. So I run corporate and product strategy, and I've been in the business for well, a long time, a little over 26 years now, and so a lot of tax automation and order to cash procure to pay experience in my background.
So, can you unpack how Avalara's AI agents actually work? Like, what kind of compliance tasks can they take on today?
Well, virtually anything. When we think about, the use of agentic AI, we're talking about, flows of activities that can be facilitated by these AI capabilities. And so it could be anything from, workflows to filings to processes that involve, the procurement of registrations or licenses. Really, a way to think about it is if you look across Avalara's portfolio of products, we've exposed agentic capabilities across all of them. And so anything that we've traditionally done in a pure SaaS model can now be accessed in additional flexible ways through the use of these agentic technologies.
So, I've heard the terms Avi Everywhere, MCP servers as kind of key components of what you're doing, but how do these innovations kind of enable this compliance automation?
Yeah, it's a great question. So MCP servers, as previously mentioned, are these model context protocol softwares that allow agents to interact with our platform. So all of our APIs get registered on these servers, and then you can have, like, people are familiar with OpenAI's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or any of these things, and you can use text, as a human user to interact with an agent that can then perform all these things with our platform. So for example, if you were to say to an agent, hey, I'd like to calculate tax, I'm selling these widgets, I'm selling them from one location to another, here's how much they cost, go, and can it calculate the tax? Well, normally that would be something that'd be really technically difficult to code, an integration between two applications, and you'd have to find the value here and map it over here. But the MCP servers and agents allow this all to just happen with natural language. It gets parsed, the values get extracted, they get sent to the API, values come back, they get parsed, and they get presented to humans in English. And that's a pretty incredible unlock. And then that in turn powers the ability to generate agents that can do all manner of things. And so when we talk about Avi Everywhere, Avi is Avalara's agent. And Avi is sort of the super agent of Avalara in the sense that we've got this army of agents across our portfolio of products, and Avi's the front door that can orchestrate tasks across all of them. So you could say to Avi, hey, I would like to prepare a tax return. And Avi could say, okay, hold on. I'm going to go get my tax return agent and I can help you with that. And so Avi's not an expert in returns, but Avi's an expert in knowing which agent to call to create returns. So when we talk about Avi being everywhere, what we mean by that is that Avi doesn't just live inside of our platform. It does. There's Avi, inside our products and support portals and all that stuff. But Avi is also free to go out into the world and go to where work is happening. It could live in the browser. It could live in an ERP. It could live in all manner of applications. And we could talk about that more here shortly. But that's what we mean when we talk about MCP servers and Avi everywhere.
So this is a pretty critical domain that we're dealing with here, right? Taxes,
Sure.
money. How does Avalara balance automation with that kind of human oversight so that there's accuracy, so that people still trust the process?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question because we get a lot of when we're all proud and we're explaining, oh, we've got this great AI and everything, and the first question that comes out of people's mouths are, can I trust it? Is it going to just take over like a Skynet thing and I'm not going to know what's happening? But the good news is, of course, we recognize that these are business critical systems. To your point, we're dealing with business data that's very sensitive and also that needs to get filed with governments that are looking to see, is this all accurate? Is it right? And the good news there is that our AI follows all the same roles, permissions, security protocols. We've got responsible AI governance policies, and part of the design of these systems is inclusive of humans in the loop to review what these AI systems are doing at critical junctures, whether it's approving a classification of an item for taxes or duties or however it's going to be used, or it's deciding that a return that's been prepared by AI looks correct and all the appropriate materials have been submitted for review and there's sign off. So every juncture where a human should be involved, a human can be involved.
Great. So the ERP software blog is, of course, 100% Microsoft Dynamics focused. And how does Avalara's kind of agentic program enhance what people are already doing inside Dynamics 365?
Yeah, so we've always had a great partnership with Microsoft, and we've always I think been viewed as a company that augments the core capabilities of our partners. Obviously, Dynamics has its own tax calculation capabilities, but when there's a certain level of complexity or customers get requirements that exceed a threshold, they turn to a partner like Avalara to help them out. And I think that's our speciality, right? Is really the focus on all the complex global tax and compliance obligations that companies are faced with. And so we augment what all the powerful features that Microsoft's imbuing into its products by supplementing those with our own AI agents that are experts in the tax and compliance market. And they can, observe, advise, and execute where and when appropriate against those types of activities within the ecosystem that is Microsoft.
Interesting. Could you share maybe a real world story or example customer scenario from a Microsoft Dynamics user where they kind of saw results from this model?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because I think when you just, say the words, it sounds, that sounds futuristic. Is that real? Is it vaporware, slideware? But yes, I can, and I'm happy to. In fact, I'll share two because I think they're fantastic examples, and they've got a lot of Microsoft specificity to them. So let's talk about them in turn. The first is an example of Avi Everywhere, where Avi is released through a Chrome extension, so it can live inside your browser. And if you're a Dynamics customer and you're looking to onboard with Avalara, it can advise you through the onboarding experience, highlight the fields that are required to be populated within Dynamics, populate some of the fields with data that's required for certain values that we know are part of the configuration, walk you through step by step until you're live and connected. And then it can hang behind as an additional member of your team to answer tax and compliance questions within that browser experience. And that's a very dynamic, specific thing because it's built to help with that specific workflow. And then and the second example is also got a lot of Microsoft specificity in multiple dimensions, actually, because it's an agent that lives inside of Microsoft Outlook. And you might say, well, what's that got to do with Dynamics? Well, because agentic AI is just such a sea change kind of event, it allows compliance to go to where work happens. And so upstream of the ERP, there's this idea that you receive an invoice, and the first order of business is that somebody's going to code it and enter it into the ERP. Well, that's where a lot of compliance issues actually arise. Can we make that better so that when that document is ingested into the ERP, it's got a clean compliance bill of health? And so we've turned to AI to help us with that. And this agent actually looks for invoices coming into a user's inbox, believe it or not, can digitize them, check them for all the appropriate taxes, duties, tariffs, and even check to see if they're compliant with exemption forms and other things that might weigh in on the tax that should be charged. And then when everything looks to be in order, can ingest it into the Dynamics ERP through our e-invoicing API. And so here we've got, two different examples of using agentic AI to go where work's happening so that users don't have to leave an experience, as in the case of a browser. They don't have to open a manual to figure out how to implement a software. And in the case of Outlook, they get to have a benefit of remediating compliance issues before they even occur and ingesting clean bill of health documents into their ERPs. So that's two examples.
Yeah, so two great examples. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
sure.
let's talk a little bit about the upcoming Convergence event that's going on in Miami that Avalara is a big supporter of.
Yeah.
Convergence AI plus ERP is the actual name of it. So it's all about how AI transforms business systems. What role do you see tax and compliance kind of playing in that transformation story?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's perfectly situated, right, for its complexity, the reliance on data and rules and all of those things that really make it very susceptible to users wanting to automate that. Because you don't want to spend calories doing something that doesn't have a lot of value if you can avoid that, where you'd prefer to spend your time on headier things that are more strategic. And so it is the case, I think, with the application of AI in this context, where the first and foremost, you want to automate the things that can be automated. And I think AI, as previously mentioned, opens up new and different ways to facilitate that. And in some cases, ushers in new benefits with, remediation beforehand that drives additional value in that automation chain. And then in addition to that, because all the data is flowing through these AI systems, it offers up the ability to glean new insights from the data, and that kind of powers that strategic lens. So you're getting sort of a two-sided benefit, right? You're extricating yourself from the dynamic of having to perform those low-value loop, types of tasks, and you're getting better data and insights on the top end of it to drive the more strategic, part of your operations.
JB, what's your prediction looking ahead? Where do you see kind of agentic compliance headed over maybe the next year, especially as ERP systems continue to evolve?
Yeah, I think look, agents are going to be a big part of the story in the coming months and years. It'll start off with agents of the ilk that I've described, where we've got Avi perhaps interacting with humans in a lot of the context of what I've described to this point. But what I didn't mention is there's another protocol that's even newer than the MCP protocol for it's called agent to agent, and it was released in April of this year. And it allows an agent to speak to another agent, and they can collaborate to create outcomes. Well, as the technologies that we partner with develop their agents and their capabilities, and both sides agents are developing, you will see the advent of more agent to agent communications. We've already actually released a capability in this regard where we've demonstrated the ability to have an agent living inside of a calling system saying, I would like to prepare returns. And it calls Avi, and Avi says, okay, I can do that. And as mentioned, Avi then gets the returns agent, and the three of them start, doing this dance to create this outcome, which is quite crazy. But that's where I think the future of some of this is headed.
So the Convergence event in Miami, for those attending, the Avalara booth is always a big splash, easy to find. But why should people stop by the Avalara booth? Like, what could they expect to take away from a conversation with your team?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. I mean, firstly, I think people are always pretty shocked to understand the full breadth of our capabilities. Our product portfolio has grown over the past, years, and not everybody's familiar with everything that we do. And then, what goes hand in glove with that is this notion that we've agentified really anything. So, regardless of your specific area of interest as it pertains to our portfolio, you'll have an opportunity to learn how to use AI to transform your function. And I think that whether you end up doing it or not is at least a fantastic learning opportunity to see what folks are up to.
So if you could leave, listeners, business leaders, partners, users with one message kind of about the future of compliance, what would it be?
Well, these are exciting times. I think I would leave you with the idea that it's transforming compliance from something that's historically been viewed as a burden in many respects to something that's an actual bona fide advantage. It can be a competitive advantage, right? And I think I'd encourage people to really lean in because the first folks to tap into a competitive advantage that extricates them from expense and lower strategic value items means that they're going to be better positioned vis-a-vis their competition. If you do it first and your competition lags, they're still spending calories on things that you don't have to worry about. And so that's part of the transformation journey I think we're all on. And I think that's important.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Jayme, and we all look forward to meeting with Avalara at Convergence 2025.